that, Tiger. You just hit the jackpot.
Before we get into TPB 339, folks, I just want to say that this episode, once again, dedicated to Stan the Man Lee. That's right, Stan Lee, creator of Spider-Man, the X-Men, Fantastic Four, so many other Marvel comics and everything else. This is in his memory, and this is also to thank Dan Slott for the 10-year run he had on Spider-Man. Enjoy the show.
Hi, this is John Semper Jr., the head writer and producer of Spider-Man the Animated Series, and you are listening to the Geekcast Radio Network.
You've just jumped inside the pull bag. Join TFG1 Mike and the rest of the comic reading crew here at the GCRN as they make their great escape into comics. From DC, Marvel, IDW, Boom Studios, Zenoscope, and more, we have everything you want to read right here. Transformers comics? Yeah, we cover that. He-Man? Yeah, sure. DC superheroes like Batman, Batgirl, Nightwing, and Batman Beyond? Yep, we have those too. How about TMNT from IDW and I Hate Fairyland from Image Comics? Yeah, we have all that here. Plus, so much more. It's all inside the pull bag here on the Geekcast Radio Network. So without any further ado, it's time to talk about the comics we are reading right now here inside the pull bag.
They don't look like they're headed for night school. It's not nice to rob jewelry stores in Mr. Spider-Man's neighborhood.
Hello and welcome to episode 339 of The Pullbag. I'm, of course, TFG and Mike. Joining me once again is JT from Saskatoon. Hello, Mr. Nickelback.
It's like if the Beatles were produced by Nickelback. It's music, but it sucks.
Hey, that's it.
Hi.
I'm done. I've had it with all this Nickelback hating, right? You think that makes you cool with the cool kids in school, Fred?
No, it just makes me right.
It doesn't.
They're overproduced, formulaic ear garbage.
Oh, really? You know who might disagree with that?
Respect the back, people.
Facts. 50 million albums worldwide. 11th best-selling musical act of all time. Billboard's most successful rock group of the last decade. 6 Grammy nominations, 12 Juno Awards. Those count. 6 Billboard Music Awards, 2 American Music Awards, 1 People's Choice Award, Canadian, and a partridge in a pear tree.
Yes, or Ryan Reynolds will dress up in a red and black suit and duct tape you to a bed until your legs atrophy from non-use.
Tired of living like a blind man. Sick aside of a sense of feeling. This is how you remind me.
It's only Fred Savage. That's no loss.
This is how you remind me of what I really am. This is how you remind me of what I really am. It's not like you to say sorry. I was waiting on a different story. And I've been wrong. I've been down. Been to the bottom of every bottle.
Ooh. Technical difficulties. Let's move on, shall we?
Alright, so we are here and we are back to talk about the Amazing Spider-Man, Peter Parker, all that good stuff. We did wrap up our Superior Spider-Man coverage, as I said in that episode. Edge of Spider-Verse, Spider-Verse, all that stuff is coming later this year. Ryan, aka the Uneven Flo Merkley, and I did the Venomverse stuff, which we still will do Edge of Venomverse at some point. I don't know when. It seems like I'm coming to Dan Slott, and I said this last time, that I'm coming to Dan Slott's runs at the end of stuff. When it was going from Amazing Spider-Man into Superior Spider-Man, I started at 698, read through 700. Obviously, 700 was the end. It went away. Superior came in, did 30-plus issues. And then they brought it back because, hey, we have a new movie. I know that's not Dan's fault. It's more of a Marvel, Disney, Fox, whatever the hell thing. Which, if you think about it, Disney now owns Marvel and Fox.
To quote Robin Williams' Monopoly Center, I want to rule the fucking world.
That's right. So, I have not read the other 793 issues, well, I've read some of them, but not all. I have not read Dan's amazing run after Superior ended. I haven't even read the first issue. I knew that Peter was back, Otto was dead. That's all I know.
Yeah, I mean, the Amazing Spider-Man After Superior is what I like to call affected by Marvel's case of DC-itis, where they reboot, it's Marveltonium or whatever you want to call the disease. Like how they have this, it's Marvel now, all new, all different Marvel now, all new Marvel now. Like every couple of years they reboot the title, so you have what I think was Amazing Spider-Man Volume 3 After Superior, which then kind of morphed into this Amazing Volume 4, which is, the end of Dan Slott's run. And I was looking at a Reddit in regard, like doing a little research about this earlier today. I really got to stop reading the comments on articles online because I started thinking, I don't need to hang around here anymore. Don't worry, folks. I'm not going to do anything drastic. I'm just saying I'm this close to quitting social media.
Well, I mean, between Reddit and 4chan, no one needs that shit.
Yeah. Reddit can be informative. 4chan is where the devil makes potty. But anyway.
4chan is where Spider-Man went because the devil made a deal with him.
Well, okay. The thing is, like, a lot of this Reddit article, a lot of people had good points that not everything, like Dan Slott at times was lazy with some of his writing. Like, it's just like it's phoning it in. He phoned in a lot of stuff. Not all of his work the way these people are talking about it, but when he finishes strong, and I definitely think he finished really well with these last few issues. They're not as good as New Ways to Die and Brand New Day, like, where he's really hitting home runs back in the day. But this is, I don't want to say adequate in a bad way. This is adequate. It's entertaining. It's fun. You can bitch, moan, and complain of his characterization of Norman Osborn, but, I can't make everyone or anyone like this. You don't like it, you don't like it. I'm saying I loved it.
Yeah. It's kind of like Nickelback, folks. Yeah.
I got nothing. I'm sorry. I just can't even respond to that.
Yeah. You know you're a fan. Don't lie.
I'm a fan. I'm not going to defend your jokes.
What a way to be Canadian. All right, so this run, actually, I had liked a whole thread of Dan's tweets on Twitter about, like, when the end of the run happened, obviously, and he's going back and telling everybody about certain thing, certain aspects of the run and issues people should check out and that kind of thing. So that was insightful. I thought that was really cool. I'd love to be able to get the man on for an interview. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but it is what it is. But no, I really dug this. I thought this was super interesting, and Dan Slott has always done the Spider-Verse justice. So this arc is Red Goblin. In the trade, there's two arcs. There's what is it? Threat something.
Threat level red.
Threat level red, and then Red Goblin. But the overall trade is called Red Goblin for this. Written by Dan Slott and Christos Gage. This is issue 794. Pencils done by Stuart Immonen. Wade von Graubadger is the inker on that issue. I'm going to screw up all these names. Basically, Dan and Christos wrote that 795 to 796. Dan wrote 797 to 799. And then 800 was Dan with a bunch of really awesome people on the art and things like that. What I love about the trade here is that I get good, clean covers of each of the issues. So like 794, 95, 96, 90, like they're all on a white background through Comixology, and they all look really super clean and whatever else. I love the art. I think the art is super cool. I've always loved the modern day Spider-Man art. With issue 794, Threat Level Red, this is part 1, Last Chance. We start off in the Atlantic Ocean.
Yes, there's these people coming down in the sub. They're going to this place called the Lockbox. And Commander Hicks, who looks like the younger brother of Dum Dum Dugan with that majestic red beard, is talking about how, S.H.I.E.L.D. couldn't resist playing with their toys. Look where they got him. We're going to do a better job, and we'll do it under budget. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, God, this guy's a pencil pusher.
Yeah, he reminds me of if Seamus actually had hair on his head instead of that mohawk, as far as his look goes.
But he was awesome as Rocksteady, and that's what matters. But these two that they brought in, Agent Crane, Agent Coleman, they're bringing this new item to be locked down in the lockbox. And he takes them the tour, he shows them the Zodiac Key, which we don't even know what this thing does. And then shit start going south because the Zodiac Key is acting up. And then we see Coleman and company are working for Norman Osborn because they just smuggled in a crate full of pumpkin bombs.
Yep.
Coleman and Crane, I almost forgot that. And so they start killing everybody. The Zodiac Key blasts off into space, into the Earth. And we cut back to Greenwich, England. And this is one of the things I love about Dan Slott's writing is he sets stuff up and eventually it pays off, and not always in the best way, but it's always entertaining. Such as he's, closing the loop on the whole Zodiac storyline from, quite a few issues earlier. Mm-hmm. And so, they got some sort of Spidey canon there with, Max Modell and Anna Maria and Grady and everyone from Horizon, and he's still dating Mockingbird this time. And I love how he's like, I assumed we'd be able to make this go away by throwing Parker Industries money at it. I miss those days.
Mm-hmm. It's a little bit of Otto coming out in him. It's not really Otto, but it's, that Otto and Peter affected each other a lot more than either one of them wants to ever admit.
I don't doubt that, but I think that's straight up Peter, because through much of the run of Spider-Man since Amazing Fantasy 15, he's never had a lot of money.
Right, obviously. No, I understand that. I'm just saying, that was Otto's biggest thing was, I'll do it, I'll throw money at it, build a gadget, and be done with it, kind of a thing. So, and I love that art. And especially how Comixology Guided View basically just has Spider-Man in a square kind of picture, like a picture frame kind of thing. I absolutely love that panel. That panel is so cool.
Yeah. So yeah, he's, conversing with Grady and Max, and then we see the Zodiac vault open up and Scorpio walks out, because for sure, eagle-eyed readers remember Spidey and company trapped him in the Zodiac dimension 1 year ago because he went in there and he saw the future for the next year and he was going to use that to futz with the world, and clearly he saw Hydra Cap and did nothing about it, mainly because he was stuck in another dimension. But he comes out, and right on cue the Zodiac Key shows up, and I have less than an hour to use what I've learned in the vault. One last plan, one chance to grab all the power I can. I can do this, but I'm on the clock.
Yeah, the only thing with this, and this is just me wanting Dan to make a better pun, one last plan, one last chance to get all the power I can get. How about one last day?
Boo! Get off the stage! So we go from, Scorpio running away to back to the lockbox with Crane and Coleman taking out these guards, inching ever closer to whatever their goal is in this vault. And we get back to Bobby and Peter going after Scorpio, who's apparently there's some giant esoteric complex built into Big Ben that he built in there, and it's just like, I swear I saw this in an episode of Gravity Falls. I just got such a Gravity Falls vibe from this setup. Like, of course there's a giant mystic what's-it built into Big Ben. Of course Scorpio set this up, because why wouldn't he?
Because Scorpio is really Bill Cipher. Oops. Not really. But it's one of those things where, I mean, why wouldn't... If you're going to set part of the comic in London or in England at all, you got to at least go... Especially since this is the last run, you gotta use Big Ben in some sort of way. And of course, it doesn't really, hurt too much when you have Spider-Man holding a giant wrench ready to hit the guy.
Swing, bada bada.
Nope. Sorry, Cam Spidey, that's not gonna work. You needed Ferris for that one.
It's not the most intelligent plan what he comes up with, but he boots Scorpio out of Big Ben, breaking one of the four faces, and he's falling to his death, and he's like, please be right, please be right, please be right. And the Scorpio key goes to save, or goes to Scorpio's grasp, and thus negating whatever maniacal plan he had. He was like, but with my mind, my rage control, I'll incinerate you, and Mockingbird with a one-shot.
Mm-hmm.
And then they use the Spidey cannon to contain the key, and I think my favorite bit of world building here, and it's actually recorded in an episode with my co-host Ben and Red from Comic Connoisseurs talking about world building earlier today, where Max invites Anna Maria to join him at Horizon University in San Fran. And I really wish they would pay more attention to San Francisco, because really, aside from the two different runs of Daredevil where he was stationed out there, and for like one of the other, that's like the New York of the West Coast, in my opinion. Like, you got New York on the east, you could have San Francisco on the west, you could do a lot of interesting stuff there. I mean, they kind of built it up with the Uncanny X-Men run years ago, but they just tend to ignore it now.
They used it, and this is, again, something, folks. We finished our Superior run last year on the pull bag, but we're also going to finish another Superior run this year. Because they also used San Francisco in Superior Iron Man, which I don't think we ever finished.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Well, but I love where Mockingbird was, did you even have a plan to save him? He's like, sure, it was regulated. Hey, I'm Spider-Man. I'm not letting anyone go kersplat, even a multi-time loser like Scorpy here. And then he's like, something's coming to tear your world apart. And he's like, really? That happens to me every other Tuesday. And then we don't actually... We get to the end of this first issue. Coleman and Crane, we find out they're working for Norman Osborn. They have liberated the Carnage symbiote from the lockbox.
Mm-hmm. Okay, question.
Yeah.
Now, I know this simply from my animated series days and things like that. Where is Cletus? Because...
At this point, he's dead. I
okay,
believe.
So at this point, with Norman holding the symbiote, and this issue about to end, Cletus is supposedly dead.
Yeah, one of the couple of miniseries of Carnage back, they looped his power into Chthon, which is like this chaos god that's got some ties to Scarlet Witch, and he's kind of become like the prophesied chosen one to end the world. Like they got an upcoming plan with in the Venom comics now, with a big storyline coming out involving Carnage, and he's been resurrected as this like the Deadites from Army of Darkness, except he's the one in charge. And also, for those that don't know, the Carnage symbiote has to a point been infected by Cletus, because when the original symbiote bonded with Eddie, it was just a symbiote. It glommed onto him and was absorbed into his body. When Cletus got his symbiote, he had a cut in his arm that it wormed his way in and kind of bonded with him on a different way. Okay. So that's why the Carnage symbiote is always this like weird red, black, bloody looking thing.
Right, yeah, I kind of figured as much, but the reason why I ask, obviously it'll come later in this episode of the show because of what happens later in the comic, but looking at Norman, looking like this last panel here, I'm like, Norman looks, the left side of his face looks a little scarred up. I'm like, oh, hey, it's Two-Face of the Marvel Universe. He's not really two-faced up, but the way that the light is hitting him.
Yeah, no, it looks like really gnarled up and like, you know, burned and scarred and all that from, you know, stuff that's happened previously. And also, for those that may or may not know, if you haven't read up on Spider-Man, this is Norman Osborn without the Green Goblin serum in him. Mm-hmm. This is Norman thinking straight, but let's face it, the guy wasn't that mentally stable to begin with.
No.
And then he became a supervillain.
Yep.
So, you know, we move on from here to 795. I've got the single digital issues here. Mm-hmm. So they have this little bit like building towards Infinity Wars, which is the recent reintroduction of the Infinity Stones in the Marvel Universe post their much more like the Marvel Cinematic Universe versions now. There's a little one-page thing with, you know, Wolverine's been resurrected and he's got an Infinity Stone and he's wandering around the world and he always shows up at these, you know, in the background of issues like this. But I want to say this, one of the things I love about this last, I think it's year or two of Amazing Spider-Man is all the awesome Alex Ross covers.
Yeah.
Like this 795 has, you know, at this time in the Doctor Strange comic, Loki has usurped Stephen Strange as the Sorcerer Supreme. You know, and Spidey, you see in the cover, Spidey's gone to the Sanctum Sanctorum, and it's Loki.
Yeah. I like I said in the beginning of the show, I'm going to try to get these. I'll work on it myself. But, you know, all of these main covers that are in the trade, I don't know how, obviously in the single issues they would show as the single issue with the way they show in the trade is so clean cut. Like I said, white background kind of thing, $7.95 at the top, and then the title of the issue at the bottom, and obviously the image in the center. Absolutely love those. I think that's great. That's one of the reasons why I love honestly waiting for the trade and buying the trade, because
well, some things you want to go buffet on.
Yeah.
You know, you can have a single issue that's like, you know, a bag of chips, but this is like a bag of chips with an extra meat sub with a large drink.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, I'm kind of hungry right now, so
of course you are.
But yeah, we get into this issue, and Peter, you know, this is after the fall of Parker Industries due to the events of, you know, the clone conspiracy, and this is after the events of Secret Empire with Hydra Cap. You know, Peter's getting a new apartment. He's trying to get chatty with the Super, and the Super is like, I don't give a shit.
Mm-hmm.
And then he has
a he has a Superman moment.
Yeah, I like the Superman moment. I love right before that where he looks out the window, because when he was Parker Industries, he sold these iPhones called webware. That, you know, he had to pooch all those to solve the clone conspiracy. So now his former friend Liz Osborne is like, webware worthless? Trade it in for a phone from Alchemax. And he's like, low blow, Parker Luck, low blow.
Mm-hmm. And I absolutely love that Dan, and I don't know if this was his instruction or if this was just the, you know, whatever for the artists kind of thing. Spidey's in a winter coat and a winter hat. I don't think only time I've ever seen Spidey dressed up is the Funko Pop bad holiday sweater Spidey that they released last year. I don't think I've ever seen him dressed up with stuff over the suit. I mean, unless it was
a time or two over the years.
I mean, I'm not talking about
specifically with Slott, but
yeah, I'm not talking about like a winter coat and hat. I'm talking about like I've seen other stuff obviously on the suit and things like that, but actual it's like dressing up your dog, and it's just weird. I dislike it. I
guarantee you, Mike, it has happened dozens of times in the 50-plus year history of Spider-Man.
That's fine. I'm just saying it's a little strange.
Yeah. So then we go from there. You know, he's got to ride the subway on top because he can't afford to get on the train. He's got to, watch the web fluid, and we see somebody in a familiar-looking cloak using a familiar-looking orb to view what Spidey's doing. We see Bobby's moving to, I think at this point she's moving to San Francisco for a new job after, Parker Industries is kaput. She and Peter have broken up. And Aunt May is like, "Oh, we're going to lunch. I'm taking you and Peter to lunch. We're going to have such a good time." And Bobby's like, "Oh, boy."
Yeah.
And then you get Peter. I love the way Slott Peter back to the Daily Bugle, but I knew it was not going to last because they really need to get... I really do think they need to get away from the Daily Bugle. Unless it's like one of the Marvel Spider-Man, like the new animated series where he's kind of they're working towards that. It's like he's got to grow up and move out of the house eventually.
Yeah.
And he's like the science editor, and Jonah's off do his angry Jonah thing somewhere else, and Robbie Robertson's the big man now, and apparently their web forums and all that are being spammed with all these people raging against Parker Industries. And then a carrier pigeon flies in.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love that look when he sees the sigil on the letter, and I just love the "oh shit" look on his face.
Mm-hmm.
But,
yeah, I'm loving this. I think this is super fun. And now that I realize, and I should have realized it when I first saw him, like, that is so Tom Hiddleston. Oh, Loki is strange. That just...
Yeah, they've kind of, this is after, Loki died fighting the Sentry in the Siege crossover years before. And then they brought him back as Kid Loki, and then they aged him up to, sexy early 20s Kid Loki, which is in response to the huge positive response to Tom Hiddleston's performance. It hasn't been until, I would say, the recent run on Avengers and the Infinity Wars crossover I spoke of that they really made an effort to make him look more like Hiddleston. But, young, sexy-looking Loki here, he's like, "I owe you a favor, Spider-Man."
Mm-hmm.
And then we cut to lunch with Aunt May, and Bobby drops the bomb that they broke up, and May's like, "What did he do?" And it's kind of scary when Aunt May gets a pissed off look on her face.
Yeah, it is.
And then, she set up, or Bobby explains, look, if it wasn't work, we had nothing in common, which is a very mature way to end a relationship in comic books. It's usually before this, it's somebody dies, or Catwoman ditches Batman at the altar, or Kitty Pryde ditches Colossus at the altar.
Well, I mean...
People get abandoned at the altar in comics.
Yeah, not everyone is Mary Jane Watson or Gwen Stacy, so, I mean, while I'm sure Bobby was very important to Pete, it wasn't the love of his life.
Well, yeah, I mean, not everyone's MJ, but, they've come around to that again. I just really liked Carly Cooper, and I was sad when Slott wrote her out of the story. But, we go back to the Sanctum, and Spidey's like, "What is your plan? What's your plan? I know you have a plan." And they walk by. I love when they're walking down the hall, and you see there's Maui's hook from Moana in the case there. I love that. And then Loki is like, "Suppose I could turn back time." And Spidey's like, "Nah, next to that."
Mm-hmm.
And I love the allusions, well, I can't shake the feeling that at some point I said yes to an offer like this before and lost something important because of it. You see Mephisto in the background. I love the blurb. Probably don't need to elaborate on this, right?
Yeah.
And then he breaks this Venom-looking thing in these... I'm just saying that from the black and white colors, and these giant mystic flying wasp ant things...
Yeah.
Go out to wreak havoc in Greenwich Village.
Yep. And they obviously destroy them all. I love the panel where Spidey says, "The gloves are off." I love that panel. That looks so cool.
Yeah. Or he's just zip-zapping around taking these things out, and he's like, "Well struck, Spider." And I love the fact that, of course, one of these things crashes through a window and bowls over Aunt May and Bobby, and Bobby's like, "Go kick some ass. We got this." She's like, "Shoo, Spider-Man."
Yep.
And then they go, and it's like, it was all a dream, sort of thing, because Loki fixes everything, and it's just like he's trying to impress something on Spider-Man, which I think pretty much went over my head as well.
Yeah.
And then Zelma, the assistant to the Sorcerer Supreme, because they wrote Wong out of the title at this point as well. And then I love Loki's little thing at the end where it's like, "I can't be in debt to a vacuous idealist who might do something reckless with his leverage, like demand I return the mantle to his friend Stephen Strange." And it's just, again, this is what I said when Dan phones it in. I know what he's trying to do, like intro, like setting things up, but it just kind of seems like half-assed to me.
I mean, I understand what's going on in this part of the book, because it's basically making fun of One More Day.
Yeah.
Pretty much. And that's great and all, but did you really need this many pages or this many panels of pages on the pages to tell that part of the story? Like, does Pete really need to be It's a Wonderful Life, really? Seriously? No, he doesn't. Going back and just looking through it and not reading it, like, obviously I read the thing, but just as we're talking about this, I'm going panel by panel through Comixology.com's guided view, and it just seems like it was a little bit too long in the tooth, I guess you could say, is the nicest way I could put it.
Yeah. Like, I realize, and I forget when exactly Loki owed Spider-Man this favor from, but it just, like, aside from writing Bobby out, reminding us once again that all the charity work that May and Jay established before he passed with the help of Parker's Industry have all kind of gone kaputski because of what Peter did in Secret Empire and that. And it just seems like, aside from writing Bobby out and, using Loki as the omniscient narrator, is like, who knows when you might need a favor in the days yet to come. And then we see Norman. See, this is what I like and dislike about this characterization of Norman Osborn, is he's got all the arrogance and of course this is my destiny, I can do anything. It's like, you know what? I would have believed that if you were still the Goblin. But you're just Norman. You're plain vanilla human right now.
But yeah, he is, until he opens this jar, and he opens the jar, and the giant red thing comes out with the symbiote, and he turns into Carnage. And damn, that's how 795 ends. Wow.
Also, that is one of the creepiest renditions of Carnage I have ever seen. And when we did that Clayton Crane Carnage, was a while back, with the digital painted look and everything's like really slick, and that was real creepy. But this is just like, oh god, like I'm getting kind of a H.R. Giger, xenomorph alien kind of vibe.
Yeah, this is not any kind of Carnage I've ever seen before. I get it. It's Norman. It's not Cletus, it's not Kane, it's not any of those other people. Superior Carnage was the arc that we did, now that I think of it. But yeah, it looks really... Even when Ryan and I reviewed Venomverse and Venomized in episode 336, Carnage in that looked really, really cool and creepy, but this is just downright... This is like, what if you gave... Carnage to Freddy,
Yeah, it's
What if
nightmarish.
Yeah, very nightmarish. So 796, Threat Level Red Part 3. This is the conclusion to Threat Level Red. And we start off with Agent Venom, or Agent Anti-Venom, I should say.
Yeah, he's stopped Boomerang from robbing a check cashing spot, looks like. I like the props the security guard she gives to Flash is a superhero who does triage in the field. You're my kind of mask, Agent Anti-Venom. And it's like, just doing my job, just like you. You're a lot braver. And Boomerang, are you trying to make me puke? Oh, Boomerang, when will we ever see you again? Wait till the next volume, folks. And then, Flash takes off, and then Peter takes off to get to work, and oh, God. What do you want, Jonah? And I don't know if I'm intrigued or frightened of the fact that Jonah Jameson, old flat top himself, knows Peter's secret identity. Like, Peter finally decided, like take his mask off. Would you shut up? That kind of moment when he revealed it to Jonah. But it's also kind of like Peter might not have been the most intelligent decision. Just saying. And Peter gets to work, and then, due to events in the Venom comic and everything, Flash owes Liz Osborn, things. So the way they've reinvented Liz in the last few years and make her like this, like really kind of insidious, like daytime soap opera kind of Machiavellian bullshit artist.
Yeah.
Is beautiful. I love it.
Now, remind me, Liz, is she supposed to be, when John Semper Jr. did his Spider-Man the Animated Series, was that technically Deborah on that series? Is that...
No, Deborah is an actual character from, I think, sometime in maybe the late 70s or sometime in the 80s.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure it was two different characters, that's all. Okay.
Yeah. Although they did bring Deborah back in the comic books years ago, like when Spider-Man unmasked during the first Civil War, and she wrote this tell-all book and how Peter Parker and Spider-Man ruled my life and blah, blah, blah.
Jeez.
But yeah, so Liz is turning the screws on Flash, and Peter's going to like let everyone know that Alchemax has got this big show coming up.
Yep.
Oh, sorry, brain fart there for a second. And then we see they go all the way back to Alchemax is disposing of this rare explosive metal, and I forget, maybe you might know, Mike, is that Sinjani's anti-vibranium that she created at Horizon Labs, or is that a new metal?
I thought it was a new metal.
Okay.
They call it something else. What the hell do they call it? I'm trying to find it here. It's Trinanium or something or other like that.
Yeah. Although we get to the testing facility, and Peter bumps into Mary Jane, who at this point is basically the Pepper Potts of Stark Industries. This is before they rebooted Stark Industries into Stark Unlimited in the current run of the comics. And you see them getting all flirty and chummy, and, well, I mean, clearly Slott's, kind of teeing up what happens in the current run and the next Spencer run of Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's called Tritanium, or Tritidium.
Tritium.
So, Tritium, there we go.
Sounds like something that was a MacGuffin in another Spider-Man film, possibly involving a certain octopod-themed villain. Okay, it was Spider-Man 2.
Yep.
And so we get up there, Hugo, that's the guard's name. And he goes to set this thing off, and then the Goblin King shows up. Oh, Phil Urich, you're not going to be around long.
Go home, Urich, you're drunk.
Yeah.
God.
I honestly, like, I completely forgot about that character. Like, I read that Green Goblin series that was around for a hot minute in the 90s. I was like, the Green Goblin's a hero now, sweet. And then completely forgot about him until Dan Slott retooled him years ago.
For Superior, yeah.
Well, for Amazing when he first took it over with like sometime in Brand New Day and with Big Time and all that.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
But this is also like Mary Jane tries to, okay, I'm with Stark Industries. This is just called Iron Man. Everyone run for it. And then she's like, except this is an MP3 player and Iron Man's been in a coma for months. And then, Liz is like, don't worry. I've got some very special security. It's because she's basically blackmailed Flash into protecting the demonstration.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I love the whole MJ and Peter thing again. I think that's super cool. I love that she says, old habits are hard to break, and, old habits, not bad habits.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. And what I love about this story, kind of starting after that happens, is the whole Carnage Norman thing and his realization that, hey, I can use the symbiote to eject the nanites that Pete put in me because it's not allowing me to become the Goblin anymore. And this is kind of where the whole Red Goblin thing happens. And I love that final panel of this issue. That is so cool. Green Goblin on the left, Norman on the right, and obviously Carnage or Norman in the center, Carnage on the right. Oh, with him holding the Goblin formula. So fucking cool.
Yeah, and I mean, that to say, like, the whole Goblin King heist, it's, of course, Agent Anti-Venom and Spider-Man kick his ass. I do love that one shot where Peter, like, kung fu, because Phil has the lunatic laugh power, and he kung fu kicks him right in the throat. And he's like, not going away empty-handed, and he grabs the tritium. At least I think he grabs the tritium and takes off. And then we see there is a Hugo, like Phil had sliced the dude's arm off. And that's a really cool application of the anti-venom powers, is that Flash sticks the hand back on and uses his healing webs to, like basically reattach it. And, of course, he's still going to have, like, physio and all that. And then Mary Jane, just like old times, covers for Peter. And,
yep.
What
is so crazy to me is, and this is probably, and we'll get to it later, probably the one time this entire arc that I cry at the end. It has nothing to do with Norman or any of that, because Norman's a fucked up guy, let's face it. Norman is not Otto. Like, we cried.
What's that? The Lex Luthor of Marvel Comics is screwed in the head? I am shocked.
Obviously, but, like, Flash to me was always the high school bully. He was never anything more until they finally made him something more by giving him the symbiote or making him Agent Anti-Venom or whatever.
They kind of did that turn many years before, but I get what you're saying.
I'm saying my exposure to Flash is that in the original 94 cartoon, he was nothing but a bully. He was Spidey's biggest fan, but he was still a shithead to Peter Parker. That's really all I've known of him, and throughout the subsequent movies and things like that. So I love seeing this other side to him.
Yeah. Although, as we see, like you said, Norman heals himself and he pukes up the nanites that were basically, if he ever took the serum again, would just flush the serum from his body, and he heals his face. Although I do like that first shot as we come back to Osborn's study. Look at Carnage. Like, he looks like half a xenomorph in that shot. Like, he looks like he's going to have a tongue jaw in his mouth and he's going to spit acid.
Yep.
But yeah, so Norman is ready to go, and we move from there into, I mean, everyone calls it the Red Goblin arc, but it's officially titled Go Down Swinging.
Go Down Swinging, right. And like I said, I'm only saying Red Goblin because that's what the title of the book is. Like, if you look at the front cover of the trade, it says Red Goblin right on it. Yes, you're right. The final arc is called Go Down Swinging.
Yeah.
Love that cover, though. That Goblin cover. That is so cool.
and I'm not just saying this because I've been a huge fan of Alex Ross for years. Whenever he does the Green Goblin, it's always one of my favorite pieces. It's just something about the work that he puts into it that I just think tops so many others. Like Green Goblin's like tied for first place. Him and Doc Ock are my favorite Spider-Man villains. Like I can never decide between the two. Mm-hmm. And when Alex Ross does when he does Doc Ock, it looks awesome as well. But yeah, we get into it. We've got Stuart Immonen Stuart is backed with the art. And he's always had like a really creepy, like when he puts effort into it, he can make some really creepy like scenes. Like that's one of my favorite things about him. It's not so much the character design, it's his backgrounds. Like this opening scene with like the jack-o'-lantern, and Norman is like talking to somebody that he's got trussed up, and you know his study's all like been gutted and there's webs hanging everywhere, and Norman is just I love that shh, Norman says indoor voice, and I was like, oh god, that's creepy. Mm-hmm. And then we go back to Mary Jane's place, and she and Peter Parker are making out.
Yeah, and then that stops as soon as she rips his shirt off and realizes, oh shit, you're Spider-Man. Get out. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, it's like, yeah, she wants to get back with Peter because she truly does love Peter, but then Spider-Man is that great big elephant in the room. And it's, you know, she still hasn't completely gotten over that thing. It's like a wife who her husband's a cop, or a husband whose wife's a cop. It's like that uncertainty. And she just kind of has to deal with it. Although I do think him leaving the apartment and all that, I don't know, this may or may not be a subtle nod to the relationship between Peter and MJ in that PS4 game.
Might be a little.
Yeah.
I mean, I know eventually once we get to Spider-Geddon, they actually introduce the PS4 White Spidey as his own character.
Yeah. And so we see Norman stalking, you know, MJ and Peter at the apartment, and we go back to the, you know, creepy crypt keeper set up in his study, and well, we know he's nuts because he picks up Splinter's cousin and eats him.
Yeah. And
like not like just swallows him whole, like literally rips him in half, and but we go back to Spiderman. Spider-Man, you know, does his thing, snatches a purse snatcher. I love how he, as much as he's a good guy to the folks, he's a good guy to the thief as well. He's like, yo, Webhead, last time you left me hanging like this, some kid snatched my shoes. Help me out? And I love Peter's, fine. I love that little things like that.
Yeah, that is very cool.
And then we go back, you know, to the Science Club, and they're trying to write a story involving Phil Urich's theft of the tritium, and you know Ben Urich is back working at the Bugle again. And I don't know, like I like like I said before, I like the fact they brought him back, but I just could not wait until he left the Bugle again.
Yeah. And this whole thing with him and JJ, with the whole, you know, JJJ, look, now's not a good time, like him whispering while he's at the Bugle, like, because Jonah is running his own, like, crackpot newspaper thing.
He went from being the Bill O'Reilly of Marvel Comics to being somebody on the internet, and I love the fact, like, since he... Sorry, you go.
You're lucky I don't end this podcast right now. How dare you mention Bill O'Reilly on a Marvel... Oh, God, that guy needs to burn in hell. I wish Red Goblin would tear that guy a new ass. Oh, my God, Bill O'Reilly. Ugh. Oh, no, wait, that's Bill Maher. Whoops. Either way.
Subtle. But no, I love the fact that since Jonah found out Peter was Spider-Man, that he's hilariously overcompensating for all the years of shit that he's talked about Spidey. And now he sees himself as like, you know, this is like Alfred if Alfred was on a constant diet of caffeine and Red Bull.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I like that. When he gets off the phone, I love that. I'm out of phone fluid. I mean, web data. Minutes later.
Yeah. So funny. We end up back at Liz's place and
at Alchemax, and she's still turning the screws. Is like, well, you did kind of screw up at the demonstration, so I can't let you go just yet.
Yeah.
She keeps doing it like that, and then you got was it Mark Raxton, like the Molten Man's her half brother, and he's been cured since Slott was the one that finally cured him. I almost forgot about that. Well, Harry did, and then Liz is just getting over the moon because she gets the boss around her high school boyfriend, and we see that the nanny with Norman Jr. and Harry are hanging out at the park, and who's that creepy man in a trench coat looking at all the kids?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That would be Norman, people.
Yeah. And then we go back to his, creepy supervillain lair, and I thought it was his original study, like from where he diced up his helpers there in the last issue, but it's like somewhere else, which is on top of another goblin stash that Phil is raiding for gear again. And I like that. I'm not anyone's knight. I took the best title for myself. Lights up his sword. I am the Goblin King! And Norman catches the blade in his hands.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that Freddy Krueger-ish. Like, I love when he does some really gruesome stuff. It's always in these silhouetted shadows.
Yeah. Because Norman is always a guy of the shadows when he's doing his villainous ways. Like, he's not... Yeah. He's not
just like the Clone Saga.
Exactly. I was going to say, he's not like Loot and Plunder from Captain Planet, who is the ultra lean businessman that tries to do everything so stupidly. And then comes the moment where he realizes, because his prisoner tells him, sort of in one way or another, that Peter Parker is Spider-Man.
Way to go, Jonah.
I mean, technically he did have Jonah trussed up and tied up and probably tortured the guy beyond belief. So it isn't like, Jonah did it on... Like, this is not Jonah screaming at the top of his lungs that Spider-Man must be, blah, blah, blah.
Well, no, it's just that, like, Jonah's, like, teeing up Norman, and because, the old blowhard there can't just shut up, he keeps going, and he uses that backhoe-sized mouth of his to dig himself a nice deep hole. Mm-hmm. And, he could have said all that stuff, but then he had to mention the time Norman threw Gwen Stacy off the Brooklyn Bridge. And then Norman is like, aha, a clue.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see, it's like, Jonah's like, what have I done? You done goofed, Jonah. You done goofed.
Mm-hmm. And that's how 797 ends, the first part of Going Down Swinging. Or Go Down Swinging.
We get 798, great Alex Ross cover. Like, he's really knocking it out of the park these last few issues.
Yeah, absolutely love it.
And say what you will about the Goblin Glider, I've always enjoyed this, the original tinfoil glider, as I like to call it. Like the classic Goblin Glider. Like, mm-hmm. I mean, what they did in the cartoon with Hobgoblin and then Green Goblin, like, yeah, because there's this more emphasis on tech and everything like that. Just, I love this Goblin Glider, and it's a classic image, Spider-Man, GG fighting through the skyline of Manhattan.
Yep, absolutely. We start off at the Daily Bugle's Science Division.
With something's coming their way, and, well, whatever it is, it's not setting off my spider sense, so Peter's not worried just yet, and then his worst nightmare comes sailing through the wall.
Mm-hmm. Oh, shit. Yep. And what I love here is when we go back to the Goblin's lair across town, the art on Jonah is just... I love that photorealistic kind of look.
You can see all the pain on all the regret going through him, and as he's straining against his bonds, and you see Maddie and the late Mrs. Marla and his dad, who, I mean, all those deaths are tragic, but it's just like I was really digging Jay and Aunt May.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, dude, why?
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, we go back to the Daily Bugle, and then Betty's like trying to stall for time, and, you know, Peter's run off to find Spider-Man. And I love how ever the newshound Ben Urich is like trying to, you know, get some info while he distracts like he's doing his job. And I love where he tore the statue of tritium, or the head's made out of tritium, I think.
Yeah, the statue head it's either made out of tritium, or that's where the tritium was put into the statue head. I think. I could be wrong.
Yeah. But so he's got this bomb that's going to like level the building, and they only have 10 minutes. So, you know, Peter goes to work softening up Norman because, well, he doesn't know what's happened. And we go back and we find Flash has, you know, doing Liz's dirty work and has, you know, tracked Norman's lair down. He rescues Jonah.
Mm-hmm.
And then we find out the babysitter, Emma, is working for Norman. And she, like, trank darts everyone and takes the kids and runs away.
Well, we're made to think that.
Oh, no, it gets revealed later. I'm just saying.
No, I know, but I'm saying, like, we're made to think that she's working for Norman, but she really isn't.
Yeah. And I love Peter goes, "We are Groot," and webs himself up with the bomb.
Oh, that is one of my favorite images out of this issue. You know, where, you know...
And they're also
no
making
fair, you meddlesome son of a language gobby. See what
Yeah.
you did. Now I have to retreat into my safe space. I love...
And that is a shot across the bow of snowflakes everywhere. Like, my safe space. Like, nothing can touch me in here. And I love the reveal, like, Goblin's impaled on this girder, and, you know, I know who you are, Peter.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "I wish I could have saved you. I really do." "You really do, don't you, Parker?" "Well, I'm the Red Goblin now."
Mm-hmm.
And that is... It's a cool idea, but I don't dig the design, man. I just don't.
It's more Carnage than Goblin. I think that's the issue with it. It is more
It's not quite toothpaste and orange juice, but
it
almost.
It reminds me of right now the panel where he's finally revealed, at least to Peter anyway.
Yeah.
He reminds me of a demented version of Mushu from Mulan at this point, with the long red tail and everything else. And then, once again, I will always... They don't even pay me to do this, not that they should or that they would, but Comixology.com's guided view, I love that they zoom in on that bottom panel where Spider-Man's like, "Fuck me." Obviously, fuck is not said in the panel, folks. But essentially that's what it is. And then we have this little fight, but Spidey just goes away and tries to put a tracer on.
The creepy talking Carnage bombs.
Oh, so creepy.
That's like, just, that's not right, man.
No. You know what they remind me of? They remind me of the Scraplets from Transformers Prime.
Yeah, that's exact. It's like, wow, that's creepy. And
yeah,
ooh, a new mod, like where he finds the tracer, who is like, because that old spider tracer trick, it's useless against someone who can feel everything along the surface of his body. I'm just like,
Yeah, Red Goblin is very creepy. He's more Carnage than Goblin as far as design, but what he does, oh my god, what he does, and the way he looks, and the way the artists have drawn him and colored him in this, So creepy. It's the stuff of spider nightmares.
Yeah.
I have to talk about the panel after the big fight when, where it says, "Burned, beaten, my left leg's ripped open, torn apart, useless." This reminds me, simply, and I'm only doing this because I can, if Peter had a clone... And I only say this because I'm going to make a Superman 3 reference. Or is it Superman 4? It's Superman 3 where he ends up having the dark side of himself, right? And he fights himself?
Technically, he fights evil Superman in Part 3, and then he...
Yeah.
And Nuclear Man is technically could be considered a clone in 4.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is when he's fighting himself, it's Superman 3, if I remember right. I should remember right. I've seen that movie enough times. But just him sitting here like this, shirt off, leg torn to shit, spider pants kind of torn all to crap, the belt... I'm like, ooh, this reminds me of when Superman had to basically go and hide out and heal up before the big fight kind of thing.
Yeah. So but I love that. It's like, I'm Peter Parker, the man in Spider-Man, and I'm the one who's going to take you down. That's a badass way to end this comic.
798 ends on that note. I love 799's cover.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I mean, yeah, that's just... See, when it's Stuart Immelman's art is really why... Like, I do not think it works for the Red Goblin design, but Alex Ross, because because of the photorealistic and the painted look and the digital effects and everything, it looks creepy as hell.
Yeah,
because something to do with the goblin juice and the carnage symbiote that Norman breathes fire, and he's constantly smoking, or he's like melting plastic, and he just got those weird creepy wisps, wafting off of him. It's just like, oh wow.
Mm-hmm. So 799 basically is it's team up time, folks. It's getting the team together, basically. The Ties That Bind is part 3 of Go Down Swinging. Oh boy, when I first saw Torch, I'm like, where are the other 3?
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is after Secret Wars, and Reed and Sue and the kids are out gallivanting the multiverse, creating new alternate worlds.
Yeah.
And Ben and Johnny, this is before they started or this is just after they brought back Marvel 2-in-1, which was basically a long-winded way of setting up the return of the Fantastic Four.
Right.
I just love the fact that now they're living at number 4 Yancey Street. But yeah, so Peter's called in Mary Jane, Johnny, Miles, Cindy, Ultimate Spider-Man, and Silk, and they're basically watching over Peter's loved ones while he's camped out in an old Oscorp facility, and he's the man in the chair.
Mm-hmm. He's
pulling a Ned from Homecoming.
There you go.
And he gets Flash, and then he loops in Clash, who I love the idea that he's like this kid who was inspired by Spider-Man when he first started, and he kind of became this villain because Spider-Man wouldn't listen. But yeah, he gets them to, go look after people. And we see Liz and everyone's waking up, and they're going to search for the kids. And I love you can hear the from Peter when Jonah confesses that he, I kind of told him who you are. And Peter's like, I'm gonna smack you.
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
But yeah, Liz catches up with Emma, who she's trying to save. We find out here she's not working for Norman. She's trying to save the kids. And then we find out that, holy shit, Mrs. Osborn's alive.
Yeah.
And I don't think they ever, I've read a lot of Spider-Man comics. I don't think they've ever really talked about Harry's mom before.
No, they haven't really. It's just
It's
that
just
she
always
died,
assumed that
or
yeah, she's not around anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like when a puppy dies and you tell the kids that he's gone to live in another farm. Like, who knows what bullshit Norman told Harry back in the day. But yeah, Clash and Johnny show up to, well, the two classic kryptonites of the symbiotes are sound and fire.
Yep. And that doesn't work at all.
Which does dick all.
Yeah. Silk and Miles try to do their thing, and that doesn't work at all. And Peter, all the while, is saying, don't, it's not going to work, don't. And, of course, they don't listen. And they get their shit handled, and broken-ass Peter tries to get his suit on, or tries to get his clothes off, because obviously his suit's under his clothes.
He's trying to suit up.
Yeah, Agent Anti-Venom shows up, and Agent Anti-Venom is the only thing that hurts Carnage.
Yeah, and he's...
Or Red Goblin, I should say.
Well...
Whatever.
Tomato. But yeah, and he goes around, he's like healing Miles and Cindy and Clash, and then, you know, he gets this big old, you know, raked in the back with the Freddy Krueger claws, and he goes down. You see... I love that Imminent's art here. You see how, like, the symbiote's like he's bleeding out, but it's the symbiote's all that white goo all around.
Okay, because I have not read up on a lot of the Flash stuff lately, and I want to. I want to read Flash's Venom stuff and whatever else. Looking at the panel where Anti-Venom is down, and, like you said, white blood everywhere. I don't want to say the guy cummed everywhere, but anyway.
What are you, Michael Dodd?
Well, no. I would not want to strive to be the American version of that person.
Love you, Birdman.
Yeah. His right leg, he's basically Lieutenant Dan.
Well,
when did that happen?
That happened in the Slott run. Like, they established back in the 70s when they started the face turn of Flash Thompson, where he went to the Vietnam War, and then he got out, and, you know, he had developed an alcohol problem, and he got better, and then he re-enlisted, you know, and he lost his legs from an IED explosion. And so he's working for, like, the Veterans Administration, which eventually he gets selected to become Agent Venom for the American government. And that's where his run starts, and it just kind of gets wilder and crazier from there.
Okay. I didn't notice it before when I was reading, because I've said this before on the show for the last almost 6 years now. When I read these to get the story, I actually read them. Like, I read the bubbles and all that and everything else. I'm paying more attention to the writing and the story itself than the art. And then I didn't notice it before with his right leg. And I'm like, oh, how did that happen?
Yeah. And we got, I love that shot of, you know, Flash, you know, healing whatever he's got left. He's putting to Peter to heal him up. And I'm taking our best player off the bench and putting him back in the game. And I was like, that's one of those fist pump, like, hell yeah.
Yeah, you go, Flash. Yep.
Like, that's my boy. And then we see Norman tracking the family down, and he takes Normie, and, well, we got Red Goblin, Red Goblet. You know, I just got this vibe of Joker Jr. from Return of the Joker when I see that image.
Yeah, like, we all know Norman Osborn is, like you said earlier, the blah-blah-blah of the Marvel Universe. He's worse than any DC character you can compare him to.
Nah, the Joker's still worse than him.
Okay, maybe, with that exception. But, yeah, he turns little Normie, his grandson, into Kid Goblin or Goblin Kid or...
Kid Goblin works.
Whatever.
You know, honestly, we go from $7.99 to $800. Damn, Alex Ross, you are knocking this shit out of the park.
Yep.
Like,
and that's the main cover of the trade. What you see, you know, on 800, the red cover here.
Yeah, because you got it Betty, Ben, May, Liz, Harry, Flash, Mary Jane, Robbie, Jonah, Miles. I'm surprised they don't have Cindy on there.
Yeah.
You know. and I love there are so many artists, and we'll list them when we get to the credits at the end here, folks. But chapter 1, Crawling Through the Wreckage, we open up, and one of my favorite artists, Todd Knock. He's rescuing everybody, or Peter's rescuing everybody. And he's done enough already, and you see Peter is still hella pissed at Jonah when Cindy said, like, Jonah's on the comms, he thinks he can help, you should let him. And Peter's like, nah, he done goofed, I'm good.
Yeah.
But so Peter swings off and he catches up with Harry and company, and we moved it to a new location. Oh, they're looking at the artificial anti-venom that they created in the Venom comic.
Yeah. During
one of the crossovers, and that lab, where is it? It's that lab we bought on the South Street Seaport Horizon. I know the way, and I love that it's another nod to the Slott run.
Yeah, absolutely. We get to Jonah, and Jonah finally, and I get it. Jonah Jameson is a smart guy.
He's a news reporter. That's how he made his bones in this business.
Right, but he finally figures out that Pete,
Well, he reflects on the fact that Pete for years made money. Well, it's not faking the news, but he's still burned that what Pete did.
Yeah, and Pete's basically just taking selfies in order to make money. I mean, really, seriously, he's just dressed up in a costume. But don't get me wrong, that's awesome. But Jonah is like, would he, do the same thing? Because he's like, ooh, Venom, Brock.
He's a poor man's Peter Parker.
Mm-hmm.
He wouldn't be stupid enough to run the same. Would he?
Would he?
And you could almost see the grin spread out on Jonah's lips when that happens. Mm-hmm. And that is not... Like, come on, Eddie. Like, I understand this is what you do, so I understand, but Sim, really? That's your alias? SYM, like symbiote?
Mm-hmm. I love how the first chapter ends with, we're listening.
Yeah, and it's like just spreading out, like, which is a nod, I think a visual nod to the half mask, half Peter effect they used to do in the comics, like when his Spidey sense would go off.
Yep.
And then we go back, and now we're Umberto Ramos.
Yep. Chapter 2. Yep. Chapter 2. Too many targets. Ramos is back on the art. Now, I've said this before in other things. Art changes are art and artist changes really freak me out. When you have, let's say, 6 different artists on the same book, and they're doing separate sections of it, and it's not all one fluid thing. But I have to say here, it works and it makes sense, and I absolutely love it because each artist is bringing their own thing to Dan's last run, and I absolutely love it. There's some parts of the art with specific to Spider-Man that I enjoy more, but there are others where I'm like, oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, and Peter's ambushed by a bunch of the Carnage bombs, and I thought when the first time they're talking, like, we got fight, I thought it's like they had, their own quote unquote personalities, but it's Norman, he can see through all the pieces of the symbiote that he splits off like that, which is something not even Cletus could do.
Right, yeah.
So that's kind of creepy. And he takes out, knocks out Peter, and he's going after Aunt May, and you see Venom's come to protect Mary Jane.
Mary Jane basically firing Sonics him to death, but obviously he's not dead, but that's her reaction to seeing Eddie's Venom, and she eventually does turn that off and helps him. But the way they... Aunt May can never catch a break, people. She really can't. Sending Goblin Jr. into...
Yeah, just that, like, the yellow eyes and the fangs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, crazy. You're funny. Such a nice and funny old lady. Blah, blah, blah.
And then Doc Ock shows up. So, like you said, they're pulling out all the stops here.
Yeah.
You've got the whole Peter and Mary Jane, will they, won't they? Hell, you've got Mary Jane with an Iron Man hand, because obviously Iron Man's out in space or wherever the hell he is.
Yeah. Which, and I love just as Doc is fighting Normie, he's like, you can call me Goblin, child. And it's just like, oh, wow. And again, I love the fact that it was Otto come to protect Aunt May, because lest our listeners forget, back in the 70s, there was a time when Aunt May and Doc Ock were a thing. Like, she legit... No, this is an actual thing. He legit cared for Aunt May.
Right, yes, you are correct. But in this instance, why he does that is because he still has Peter's memories and everything else rolling around in his head from Superior.
Well, yeah, but I mean, just the fact that it's Doc Ock protecting Aunt May.
Obviously.
Yeah, so
there's nobody better for the job, honestly.
Yeah. So we get back to the Goblin Venom fight and Spider-Man, you know, 3-man. Now it's a 3-man fight. And I love it's the same hand and the part repulsor gauntlet, which may or may not be a visual nod to like that half a gauntlet Tony wore in Captain America Civil War. Like when Bucky shoots his hand. But yeah, we get into it, and the Goblin, I thought he bit off Peter's hand, but no, he just takes like a big old snacky chop. And then what happens next? Like, oh my God, why did I not see this coming? Like, Eddie talks sense into Peter, and Peter takes the symbiote back.
Well, and again, it's a full circle kind of thing in my mind, because okay, let's say, JT, you had the reins, but it was your you were going to be moving on. This was your last mark on the character, on the franchise of Spider-Man. What would you do? You would do maybe you would do the story differently or whatever else, but a lot of these homages and things that are in this final arc, you would do the same damn thing, and you know it.
Well, maybe not the same thing, but I would definitely come up with something. But like I said, I can't believe I didn't see this coming.
Oh.
Like, no, honestly, like there's a lot of shit I see coming when I read comics, watch TV and all that, but I just did not think for a second Peter would ever willingly take the symbiote back. That's like Batman willingly using a gun.
Yes and no. I think with the way Eddie is now, with the way he's been, with the way that he has affected the Venom symbiote himself, and yes, they are one, we are Venom, yada yada yada, all that stuff. The symbiote and Eddie themselves have changed so much, and this is from a guy who hasn't even read a lot of this stuff other than this final arc kind of a thing. I've read, certain, like I said, Venomverse and Venomized, but it's one of those things where once you are affected by something or someone and you realize, and this was the, like, Peter has kept saying to everybody, you can't beat him, you can't beat Red Goblin, you can't. Nothing is going to work. Well, the only way for Peter to do it himself, at least at this moment in the story, is, symbiote fight symbiote.
Well,
It's fire with fire kind of thing. And yeah, you're right. I didn't really see it coming at first, but when it came, I was like, oh, fuck, this is the greatest thing in the world.
Well, no, that was my reaction too. It's just like, I can't believe I didn't think. Of course, Dan Slott's a fanboy. Why would he not put Peter back in the symbiote? But anyway, we agree it's awesome. Moving on, we go. Maybe didn't notice it before, but the goblins left these like little,
shards.
Carnage shards stuck in like Miles and Cindy and Johnny Storm and Clash, and he's like trying to save their lives. And we move on. Jonah just can't stop digging that hole because he wakes up a Spider Slayer.
Yeah.
Jonah, you dumb, brave, arrogant, glorious son of a bitch.
I don't think he's being dumb here. I think Jonah, out of all of the people in this book, is the one person who feels, maybe outside of Aunt May, obviously, but Aunt May at this point is the damsel in distress here. Jonah feels like he wants to be heroic, but he doesn't have any powers. He doesn't know what exactly to do.
Well, no, he wants to make it better. Like, he's trying to make amends.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm saying. But he's not a hero. He doesn't have powers. How can he help? How can he do this? How can he make these amends? Well, the one way to do it, and the one way to get a reference into to something from Spider-Man's past, have him control a spider slayer.
Yeah.
I mean, why not?
Although, if you go back just before that, where Aunt May, like, chair shots Normie, it's like, I baked cookies for you.
You put raisins in them. You deserve to die.
To die, yeah. That's creepy as all hell.
Jonah comes barreling through, and Norman takes him out. And I love... It's kind of a flip on that scene from the first Raimi movie where Goblin blows in the wall and is like giving Aunt May like the biggest coronary in the world, where she's like, "I don't care, I won't give you the size." Like Aunt May's a boss.
Oh yeah, she is. She's not.
If there's one thing that I've always loved in my history of reading comic books, it was the day they finally got rid of that stupid bum hairdo. She let her hair down, and she wasn't frail as a piece of tissue paper. Mm-hmm. Like, Aunt May's always had steel in her, and I loved it when writers finally keyed to that fact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's great if you do that at first, the updo or the bun or whatever you want to call it kind of thing, and then let her hair down, but we've known in Dan's run that Aunt May's a badass, and she's not. And Aunt May doesn't have to be 40-something years old and yada, yada, yada. She can be as old as she is in this story and still stand up and kick ass. And
yeah, it's just the fact, like, I'm just saying, it's like, I've always loved it when they, granted it was after they killed her prior to the Clone Saga back in the 90s. It's just when she was brought back, they eventually got rid of, oh, my heart, Aunt May, and gave her, like, here, cookies, eat them. But yeah, and it's so, Spider-Man arrives too late. He curb stomps the Spider Slayer because he is literally sick of Jonah's shit now. Mm-hmm. Like, he's done. And then you see Aunt May trying to care for Otto, and he just can't stop saying the die was cast. And I was like, oh dear Lord. But where she says, like, you saved me again, both of us, and Otto's like, please stop. Like, he just can't handle it. But he's like, yeah, and Peter goes after him, and we see Normie and Aunt Norman have gone back to Alchemax, and dear God, even the Goblin glider is creepy as hell.
Yeah, it is.
Although that is kind of a nod, again, may or may not be a nod to Demo Goblin, who is like this demon version of Hobgoblin with a flaming back glider back in the day.
Wait a second. Oh, it is a glider. Okay, see, at first I thought Normie was riding Norman. Like, I thought Red Goblin was the flying thing, but it is an actual... Okay. Yeah. Okay. I see that now. But yeah, super weird.
Yeah, I love this, and he's Norman's evil plan, to take back Alchemax and probably rename it to Oscorp again. It's all in trust to Normie, and there's literally like 6 inches of paperwork for him to go through, and I love Liz's burn. I mean, what do you think this is? Parker Industries? Oh, sick burn.
Mm-hmm.
And
then we eventually get a battle here.
Yeah. The Humanitrons, let's call them they're Spider Slayers 2.0. Harry rides in on a goblin glider with a bunch of goblin bombs and shit, trying to rescue his son. And I love something they've built up over the years in Slott's run, that Normie is not right in the head. He has an irrational hatred of his baby brother, or baby half brother, because
like you always liked him better than me. You don't love me at all.
You know, and you know, Peter, like Harry. One of the best things Slott did is explained away Harry being dead by being he got shipped off to Europe to overcome his drug addiction. So, and Harry's made every effort since then to like just be better than he was. You know, so
yeah,
I love that. Sorry, you go.
Well, Harry can be better than he was, but Norman never could.
Oh yeah, I love the face turn of Goblin Child, and you know.
Yeah, it only happened because Norman threw Liz out the window. Mom?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
And Peter saved her, and then he's like, "Screw you, Grandpa. I like my dad."
Yep.
And the classic. Sorry, you go.
I friggin' love the whole symbiote Spidey saving Liz, because it's not often you see symbiote Spidey saving a lot of damsels in distress out of windows.
Also, I love the art and how it looks like the whites of Spider-Man's mask are just kind of exaggerated, like they're peeling off, like they're not one part of one thing.
Right.
It's just a little aesthetic thing. And I love the classic, like, Carnage turns his hand into an axe from Norman, and then Harry comes in and he takes him out just the way his dad was took out in the 70s. He's like, not again. Oh, God.
Yep. It's just a rocket for you, folks.
Yeah, and then he's like sitting there, he's like, my future, all guys, it's like, it's all your fault, Spider-Man. Yeah, because you being batshit insane and hopped up on goblin juice isn't the cause of this at all.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This chapter 3, ends with one of the coolest things. Meddlesome bug, this is where I finish you once and for all, where I devour you whole. Good, we're on the same page, because I was just about to tell you to bite me.
No, that made me smile so much the first time I read this. It's like this big middle finger to Norman. He's like, I ain't giving you the satisfaction. You know, the chase goes into the city, and Norman reveals that the shards are going to like poison and kill everyone that Spider-Man loves.
Except with a giant snap of his fingers, half the world doesn't go away.
Yeah. I love that
because Anti-Venom was able to save them.
Yeah, and he's got 5% of his suit left because he's practically in his birthday suit. And I love how Spidey gives him props. All right, Corporal Eugene Thompson for the win. I was like, I forgot his first name was Eugene.
I know. It's just one of those things where he's always been Flash Thompson.
Yeah. Even when in the 90s when he was an alcoholic and he worked as Norman Osborn's right-hand man, it was always called Flash. But yeah, you see the Goblin glider takes Spider-Man away, and Red Goblin, tackles Flash, and Peter hulks out. There's no other way to call this.
Yeah, I guess you could say Venom's out because he turns into what he most feared at first, with letting the Venom part of the symbiote take over.
Eat your brains!
Yeah.
And then I love... This is sad. Honestly, I'm not going to say I teared up, but I definitely got choked up because Flash dies and he gives, the biggest pump up to Spider-Man that he's ever gotten.
This is the moment I was talking about earlier. I cried too. This is the one emotional moment in this entire arc that, when we did the end of Superior Spider-Man, parts of that, throughout the end made me tear up. It was different sections of it, but this is the one part because, look at everything that Flash says to him. That's amazing.
No, that's genuine emotion. And for all the people that have ever crapped on Dan Slott's writing, Y'all can suck a dick.
Yeah, that's some good shit right there.
Sorry, there's been a lot of salty language this episode, folks, but...
It's an explicit podcast. It's all right. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, it's just, my hero, where he says, like, they need Peter Parker, the Amazing Spider-Man, my hero, my friend. And I was like, oh, God. Like, that's on the level of I am and have always have been your friend from Wrath of Khan. Mm-hmm. Like when Spock sacrifices himself to save the Enterprise.
Yeah.
So yeah, Goblin lands in Times Square, gut punches a hole through this guy in a $20 Spider-Man costume, and then he just starts shooting off goblin bombs and wrecking everyone's shit. And in the middle, like just that pose, like they're in the middle of Times Square, there's all this flaming chaos. Goblin has got his hands around Spider-Man's throat. He could actually win. And is like, finally, the day has come. Behold, Norman Osborn victorious. And then Peter is like, holy shit, that's how I beat him.
Yep. It's the personalities, because Norman ain't the only one in there.
Yeah. And yeah, like it's like a fragment. I don't think it's like a wholesale copy of Cletus, but this piece of Cletus is forever embedded into the Carnage symbiote, and you see it in his eyes. Yeah. It's like, he mine, yes, all mine. I killed the spider. Yeah. And apparently they read him in the modern day as having something of a southern drawl, or they imply that he's from the South or something, because he's like all redneck and racist or something. It's like, he was just a crazy killer, guys. Why do you have to improve on that? But yeah, like Peter starts, just feeding him and talking shit and doing what Spider-Man does. Is one of the best things he does, is talking shit. And he sends the symbiote away and tells him, be careful, flames aren't good for you.
Mm-hmm. That was really cool. That was fun. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. And I love the scene of Norman like peeling the symbiote off of him. Mm-hmm. He's like, I don't need anybody.
Yeah.
And I can totally see Norman or Willem Dafoe doing those lines.
You know what the sad thing is? You know what it reminds me of? You belong to me now. I belong to nobody. Megatron and Unicron from Transformers the movie. That's what it reminds me of.
Yeah, it's very much reminiscent. But I mean, all the dialogue, especially when that first one where Norman's like inside voice, like I could totally see, Willem Dafoe doing this. If they ever do like a motion comic sort of thing, they need to get him to do Norman again.
Yeah, they do.
But yeah, Peter and Norman lay into each other, and I kind of forgot he has the Electro-Zap gloves. And this is akin, like, where Peter rallies and starts beating the ever-loving tar out of Norman, and you get the flashes of, like, seminal moments in Spider-Man history, like Uncle Ben getting shot, Captain Stacy, protecting the kid. This is kind of reminiscent of the episode of Spectacular Spider-Man where, as our friend Ben Carver would say, Peter defeats the symbiote with the power of friendship, which is totally what he does, but where he gets all like Uncle Ben and all the headshots of all his friends behind him, and he like wins the struggle of wills against the symbiote. And he's like, he beats the shit out of Norman Osborn.
Yep.
And then he pile drives a flaming car into the symbiote.
Yeah. Yeah, this battle scene was amazingly cool. Absolutely loved it. And then Jonah comes up and, Jonah, what are you doing? Put the gun down, you buck-toothed fool. I swear to God, I only really ever hear Christopher Daniel Barnes from the 94 series in Spider-Man's voice. But this scene where he's telling Jonah to put the gun down, I'm like, Spider-Man as Judge Doom? What the hell? It's like Jonah is Roger Rabbit here or something, because, wow. I mean, it's more powerful than that. It's not a comedic moment. It's Jonah doing the last resort thing that he thinks he can do, because he thinks it's the only way he can end it. And, of course, Peter jumps in the front of it and gets shot in the shoulder.
And I love how he puts it out there to Jonah, is like, because with great power there must also come great responsibility, to everyone, even the worst of us. And I love the fact that Norman's jaw is so jacked up that he's all and he's like, shut up.
Yeah. And this is so sad. So sad.
I love. Oh, and
Jonah.
Sorry, go.
Jonah shoots, and Peter jumps in the way. The page of this, the full page of this. If the gun frame wasn't here, and you just saw the whole panel of Spidey and Goblin, it's like a Harlequin romance novel cover to me. Here.
Oh yeah, no, it's you can't honestly can't disagree with that. But yeah, you do that. Jonah runs off, and the art kind of makes it look like he's filled his pants.
Mm-hmm.
And we go to Arkham Asylum. I mean, the Ravencroft Institute.
Yes, Ravencroft. Always good to see Ravencroft.
Yeah, it's the Arkham Asylum of Marvel Comics, folks.
Yes.
That they haven't really used since the 90s. And I love this. It's again, to call it Arkham, this is almost like the scene from the end of Batman Forever, where Dr. Meridian goes to talk to Riddler, and he's like, I know a secret. And he's like, you're Norman Osborn. Okay, and you are... I'm Cletus Cassidy.
Yeah. So.
And he's like, yeah, we're done. And they're definitely setting up a return of Red Goblin in the future, because Alchemexing sucks all the symbiote out of Normie. Or did they?
Yeah, they set that up. You know, that's good to know. So I love this little return of Harry. I love that Harry is he's
taking his name back. He's not Harry Lyman anymore. He's Harry Osborn again.
Yeah. And, he's, says to Normie that, hey, I'm not just going to be here for Stanley. You're my kid too, kind of a thing, and all that. And then we have the goodbye.
Yeah. Also, I love the fact that for this scene, I think it's extremely appropriate that they brought Marcos Martin in to do these pages. And the funeral, you see friends and... there's a few characters peppered in here that we see, Peter's, kind of eulogy. I mean, at this point, no one's around to listen because they all kind of broke up. Like the crowd, he's just saying it to Flash, but...
Yeah.
And I love that Peter's forgiven. They're about to have a moment. And he's like, cops go by. What are you waiting around for? Get to work, dumbass. Like that right there, I heard Red Foreman in my head.
No. I have to disagree with that, because I hear in this scene, I hear two different voices, because Jonah doesn't say much. The first thing he says is, Peter, my boy, I heard Ed Asner from 94. And then as soon as the shit hits the fan, well, what are you standing around for? I heard J.K. Simmons from the...
in the moments where Jonah is like trying to with the Spider Slayer and all that, I heard J.K. Simmons. J.K. Simmons is to J. Jonah Jameson as Kevin Conroy is to the goddamn Batman. But in the moment where he's like, Parker, I heard the Jonah from the 67 cartoon. Just it's the way my mind works. But yeah, and then you see him, he just relaxes. Dag blasted, these will get all wrinkled. What would he do without me?
Yep.
And then Spider-Man he swings away, and is if your neighbor falls, give him your hand. That's how we all save the world, one friendly neighborhood at a time. Now beat it. I got things to do. Can't you see I'm swinging here?
Yep.
And I love, again, there were so many great artists. Oh, wait, that was Nick Bradshaw. I thought that was Todd Knock. Another artist I love on Chapter 1. Chapter 2 was Umberto Ramos. Chapter 3 was Giuseppe Camicoli. Stuart Immonen in Chapter 4. Giuseppe came back for that last chapter, and then Marcos Martin in the Goodbye. And, I mean, they're keeping we got 801 to do here, and there's about the numbering on issues I'll speak of when we get to the end here.
Yeah, when we get to the end. 801, I know it's Dan's last issue and everything else. We have the after credits with Anna Maria, or Miss Marconi, and
Horizon
Tolliver.
U.
Yeah, Horizon U. But in 801, like, I get it's Dan's final thing. This to me is almost like Amazing Fantasy 15 when Ryan and I did that. We don't even really need to go through this story by story because it's Dan's send-off. It's basically recapping and setting up other things, but this to me is more of, this is a story here of all the things Spider-Man has kind of done, but
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, but I love this, and I love the title of it. So you stayed after the credits? Smart move.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what that Wolverine page was. That when we were talking about 794.
Mm-hmm.
That's Marvel's trying to adapt here and there the after credits scene into their comics, which I think is kind of a brilliant move because I don't know anybody that hates the after credits scenes, and if you do, you just don't know how to have fun with your life. But yeah, Doc Ock, or Elliot Tolliver, as his new nom de guerre is, accepts a position at Horizon University as a spider-themed superhero working at a Horizon-themed lab. This has never been done before.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
And then that's how 800 ends, and then 801 begins.
I love that last. Then I shall endeavor to exceed your expectations, let others settle for greatness. I always strive to be superior. And I was like, that's a line. That's a goddamn line.
Oh, of course it is, because, they set up the new thing. My favorite thing in 801 is how they recreate Amazing Fantasy 15 in the title page shot.
Yeah, the one page.
There for you with Marco Martin, I believe. I can't see because Spidey. Marcos Martin, okay. How Spidey crashes in and it looks like him from the Amazing Fantasy cover.
Yeah, they're referencing that cover like that.
Mm-hmm.
I love the fact that, and again, this might be in reference to Homecoming and that bodega that Peter frequents in there. It may or may not. Again, Marcos Martin or Martine. I have never been able to figure out if it's Martine or not. Marcos's art, I love it. The way he sees Peter flipping around, shattering the gun in his hands, webs the guy up. And I love the guy running the bodega. He's like, "What? Are you webbing him up so you can eat him?" What? Look, I'm not that kind of Spider-Man. Here, I'll leave a note. And then the I forget, just flip back a page here. This the black gentleman, Keith Kincaid Jr. He goes off, and what follows is he got there, he gets to say goodbye to his dad, and it goes. And they say this is about a month after Peter became Spider-Man. This incident happens. And we follow Mr. Kincaid through the years, and then we see him again when he's with a niece alongside Spider-Man fighting Mr. Negative's street demons, which I really wish they would find a way to bring him back in as a Spider-Man villain. He's one of my favorite new villains that Slott created. And this is really early in the Slott run, too, when Mr. Negative, has got the formula for the Devil's Tears, and he's going to try and kill the mob with this stuff. And it's Mr. Kincaid trips the guy, which going back to Amazing Fantasy 15, and you really helped me. And he's like, "Yeah, you save a lot of people. So what I do? Got me to quit smoking." And Peter's like, "Later," and webs off. And how Mr. Kincaid, tells his niece why Spider-Man, he saves people. He makes her understand that every day Spider-Man saves somebody's uncle. And that's a really cool thing, that every day Peter is saving Uncle Ben again and again in a very existential way, but yeah, he's always saving somebody's loved ones.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. I love 801. I love how much Dan calls back to everything. I love that he essentially, by the time the end of 800 is, where we get reintroduced to Superior Spidey, 801 is essentially Dan's love letter to Spider-Man, the franchise, Stan, Steve, John Romita Sr., and all that.
Also, on that last page, which is a great, Peter swinging off to another adventure, and you notice what it says on the water tower in the bottom right corner?
Mm-mm.
Slott was here. That's classy. That's classy, yeah, sir.
That's very cool. A couple of things. I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast that Christos Gage was also on the writing on some of these issues. Christos is also he's not taking over the main ASM book, but he, like I said, or I might have said this off air, he wrote the Spider-Geddon series and things like that. I love Christos. We first read him on, I think, Justice League Beyond and some of the Batman Beyond stuff we did way back when. I'm friends with him on Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff, and whatever else. Eventually, I want to get him on an interview, most definitely. But,
Christos is a dude. He's like my dude. That he writes comics. He makes them fun. He doesn't overthink them to the point of, like, it just makes fun. It's like the ad I have at the end of this for the next Amazing Spider-Man Volume 5 with Nick Spencer writing and Ryan Ottley, formerly of Robert Kirkman's Invincible comic. Like, I've loved everything they've put into that run so far. Like, these guys, there is this wellspring of guys writing comics nowadays, coming on with original characters. They're like long-running characters that people are bringing the fun back to comics, and that is what Dan Slott did. He brought the fanboy love back to the web-swinging wall crawler, from Brand New Day through Big Time to Go Down Swinging, which again is a reference to he's swinging for the fences with this. He brought it all full circle, and I have never been prouder to be a Spider-Man fan than during these years that Dan Slott has been writing the comic.
Yeah. It has been super fun. I absolutely love it. Again, when we started doing our coverage here inside the Pullbag, it was mainly because, Spider-Man's ending. It's going away. It's this, it's that, it's whatever. And then Superior came on. Well, I think I had said to you, and I said to Matt Spada at the time, I said that I don't want to read the same old Spider-Man stories of fighting the Goblin or fighting the Insidious Six or the Sinister Six or whatever you want to call it. Fighting I want something different, and that's what Superior Spider-Man gave me. And reading through the end of that, reading the end of this, it is all just simply amazing, superior, ultimate,
spectacular
web-swinging action, and it's great.
Yeah. Like, I understand fans not liking a lot of Slott's run. I understand that. I understand no one in their right goddamn mind liked One More Day. Crazy people like One More Day. And you shouldn't, but you're crazy, and I forgive you.
I haven't even read it, and the sad thing is the next arc that I want to do, besides, like I've already mentioned, The Edge of Spider-Verse, and Spider-Geddon, the next one I want to go back to is Renew Your Vows, because I always heard so many things about Renew Your Vows.
I've read a few issues of that. It's a fun Spider-Man title. I haven't read all of it, but I liked what I read. I think one of the biggest gripes people have had of Slott's run is, they bitch about One More Day, and they try to talk about Slott, but they always just end up keep bitching about One More Day. It's like Linkara, one of the loudest voices, the loudest anti-One More Day advocates out there. Yes, we get it. But him, like a lot of fans have said, they are never going to read Spider-Man again until they completely retcon One More Day. They have to totally wipe that from the existence of Marvel Comics, and then maybe they'll read Spider-Man again. I was like, guess what, punks? It's not going to happen.
Yeah, no, it happened. It is what it is, and move on.
And this is faintly damning high praise, and I'm done with. But it's like the Superman Batman Public Enemies animated film. Ben and comic connoisseurs, we have argued about this. I love the movie and I love the comics that it's based on because they're fun, old school, like whiz bang, pow zap kind of comics. But Ben is keeps saying the movie is like, you can't polish a turd. Dan Slott pulled off a fucking miracle and polished, the biggest turd in the world.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, poor Ben. He, after all these years, he's still stuck with his one phrase, you can't polish a turd. Well, he needs to give that shit up, too.
Yeah, well, he still thinks when you talk about Diedrich Bader and Batman, your reaction is always, fucking Oswald.
Well, that's what it is, but I don't dwell on it, though.
Well, he apparently thinks
I haven't thought of fucking Oswald in a long-ass time. I want to hit on two things here. Covers for 800, just quickly, my two favorite covers, the covers that Steve Megatron put into the podcast banner art. The one is done by Greg Land and Rochelle Rosenberg. It's the one where it's Spider-Man with the web shooters splaying out with Goblin and Stacy and Kingpin and Mary Jane. Basically all the Spider-Verse Amazing Spider-Man, cast of characters kind of thing. The other one is... Go ahead.
I was going to say, I pulled up article in comicverse.com. It's got a list of all the covers here. I'd say my favorites would be, first of all, they got John Romita Sr. to come back and do a cover. They got
That's cool.
Mark Bagley, who's, my all-time favorite Spider-Man artist outside of Steve Ditko. They've got a Frank Cho cover. If you can't like Frank Cho, what's wrong with you?
The Frank Cho cover is the second part of the banner art.
Yeah.
The one where it's Spidey and then it's photos of Gwen, MJ, Aunt May, Wheat Cakes, and Black Cat. So those are the two covers that comprise the pullbag banner art for this episode.
Did Steve use any of the J. Scott Campbell variants?
No, because I didn't know. When I gravitated towards issue 800, I was like, ooh, I like this cover. And then I figured out who the artists were, and I was like, ooh, I like this. I didn't even really see. I'll have to go back and look at the J. Scott Campbell stuff, because I love me some J. Scott Campbell stuff, so...
Yeah.
But, yeah, no.
And just briefly, one thing I was going to mention, the thing, like I said, I've made no small bones about, I hate how Marvel reboots their titles every other year. But the cool thing is if you look at from Amazing Spider-Man 700 through Superior, through the couple of volumes since, it keeps going with all the numbers. It counts towards 800 issues. And that's something Marvel recently started doing. If they reboot and you got a new Doctor Strange #1, it's Doctor Strange #1. But they'll figure out what correct actual, it might be
number it is.
184 or something like that. And I appreciate that. But yeah, I love this comic, folks. Buy it individually. Buy the trades. Buy the digital files. If you like Spider-Man, read this comic.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I would give Red Goblin as a trade, as a story as a whole, between threat level Red and go down swinging. There were little bits and pieces, but it's not enough for me not to give it a 5 out of 5 stars. I just absolutely love this. I think it's absolutely great. I think Dan did an amazing job in the writing. I think Christos as well did an amazing job in the writing. I want to read more of Christos' stuff, and we will. Besides being Spider-Man fans and wanting to cover Dan's final arc, the whole initial idea for us to do this was so at some point, whether it's you and I, whether it's myself and somebody else, can follow Dan over to Tony Stark Iron Man. Because I've been reading that and I'm like, oh shit, it's Dan Slott with Iron Man. This is going to be awesome.
Oh yeah, no, I've read all that too, and it is just mwah. It's beautiful.
Yep, absolutely. Where can the people find you online, sir?
You can find me online with the Comic Connoisseurs podcast with co-host Ben Carver and Red Ink. We talk pretty much anything even tangentially related to comics, as I fail to speak English good. You can also find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, JT from Saskatoon, all one word.
Absolutely. I am at TFG1 Mike on Twitter. You can follow at The Pullbag on Twitter, also on Facebook, geekcastradio.com, all that other good stuff. Make your great escape into comics. We'll catch you next time when we get truly outrageous with 2 different Gem and the Holograms trades from IDW. Catch you next time, folks.
Who is that exotic lady?
Oh, her? She's my ride. It's been great meeting you. Take care of yourself.
You too, Spider-Man. Farewell and good luck. Wow, I wonder how I'm supposed to get down from here. I suppose I could wait for the Fantastic Four to drop by and give me a lift.
That's Stan Lee. He's quite a guy.
I think he's truly special.
Well, Madam Webb, where to now?
Face front, true believer.
You've just heard the latest episode of The Pullbag, the GCRN's first comic review and discussion podcast. There are several ways to get in touch with us and leave feedback for the show. You can visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on the episode and all of our different podcasts. You can rate and leave a review for the show on iTunes. Be sure to leave us feedback. Become a fan of us on Facebook, facebook.com/thepullbag. Send us an email, feedback at geekcastradio.com. Follow us on Twitter at thepullbag and at geekcastradio. So until next time, make your great escape into comics and unleash the geek in you.